Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Saints Row the Third. I played it on the Xbox One via backwards compatibility. It's also available on the PS3, 360, PC, and Nintendo Switch. So I'll just say this is the first game where Saints Row truly developed its own taste in full. It's always had its own little thing, but this is when it really grew into that in full. So the story starts out, you find out that the Saints Row gang has merged with the Ultor Corporation and become this giant, pop sensation conglomerate. There are stores that sell Saints Row merchandise, you are a celebrity, you can actually take photos with fans in the game. You as the leader, Johnny Gat, Shondi, and a guy who is meant to be portraying one of the Saints in a Saints Row movie are all robbing a bank. Unfortunately, that bank is owned by a criminal syndicate known as the Syndicate, and they basically kidnap you and take you to their city, Steelport. Shit goes sideways on the flight there, you escape, some of you do not escape, and man, it has an effect on some of the characters, which is a cool thing to see. Because while this is one of those games where you could easily imagine them blowing something important like that off, because a major character dies early on, I won't say who, but it also affects Shondi massively. It has a huge effect on her. And I thought that was an interesting thing because Saints Row is not necessarily one of the games you'd expect to tackle something like that. Although when they do tackle it, there is of course humor attached to it because it's Saints Row and they have just humor everywhere they can cram it. Not always the most mature humor, but it's there, and it can be really childish at times. As for the audio, I think this is the best for voiceover work. Saints Row the Third has the best cast for audio. The sound effects are amazing. I think they really did a great job with all the different vehicles, the world itself, all the different weapons, bringing that all together and just all the sound effects for all the other things, the side missions, just everything. They did a fantastic job. As for the soundtrack, when you're driving in your car, I gotta admit, this one, not as good in my opinion as the last game. I love the soundtrack from the last game. There's so much music that I just loved when driving around, whereas this one, it's a little weaker on that front. Now, as for the gameplay mechanics, it's still in some ways a GTA-ish game because it's that open world crime-based game, but it handles everything in a much more wacky manner, quite frankly. This is the point in time where Saints Row really developed and just fully embraced its own personality. The first game and the second game, they were kind of working their way towards it. Saints Row the Third is just 100% its own game. You can no longer really compare it to GTA. From how you run around shooting, to how you steal cars, to how you melee people, it has its own personality. They have their own way of doing it. You can just straight up charge towards a car, jump in, and kick the driver out all in one move. As for the mission structure and whatnot, the world structure, you of course drive around, there are side missions, there are main missions, you have a phone that you can use to call in a ride, which is a glorious feature that I didn't realize how much I missed until it was gone while I was playing the last game. But it's here, you can customize your cars, you can customize your guns, you can do so much. There's just so much to this game. They added RPG elements, there's a variety of side things to do, not just side missions, but stealing cars, contract kills, etc. There's so much in this game. That being said, I do feel like overall the story and there might be a little less content unless you get the DLC than there was in Saints Row 2. But that being said, in Saints Row the Third, there's plenty of content. There really is. There may be less than the previous game, but that's not saying there isn't enough to do, because there's plenty. There were a few times that I got stuck on objects. That was kind of a glitch problem that I had issues with, and you'd have to jump around and try and wiggle your character around to get them unstuck, and it could interfere with missions. So it was a bit of a problem. It wasn't like a massive game-destroying problem, but it could get very frustrating, and you could have to retry from a checkpoint, and that could lose you progress. As for the controls, I really like the controls in this game. I think they are better than Saints Row 2, the way they're mapped specifically, but as far as movement and aiming, I never really had any major issues with that. The only issue I occasionally ran into was when I was in a very large gunfight, I would hit X to reload, and that would pick up a gun that was on the ground. So I would be swapping out my fully upgraded awesome handgun, assault rifle, whatever, for a non-upgraded gun, and that was kind of obnoxious. But I think the driving, the flying, all of that works very well also. I mean, it's very important that it does because you drive and fly quite a bit to get around. The flying is not flawless. It's very cartoony and arcadey, so it's not super realistic, which it shouldn't be in a game like this. Then lastly, the graphics. These graphics are far superior to Saints Row 2. They're still very bright and colorful like the previous Saints Row games, but this game has embraced a much more cartoony look than the previous ones. It's not cel-shaded or anything, but none of the people, while they are supposed to look like people, they're not supposed to look like hyper-realistic people, and that works perfectly for this game because Saints Row 3rd is a much more cartoony game. It's a much wackier game, so the new art style, the more cartoony look, just really fits with the style of game. So to wrap this up, I love the Saints Row franchise, and I was comfortable not recommending the previous one, but I fully recommend Saints Row the Third. I think it's a wonderful game, it's a lot of fun, and I know it's very easy for people to play off the Saints Row game and just call it a GTA clone, but I don't think they've ever really fully played the game or appreciated it if they say that. They definitely haven't played Saints Row the Third if they've ever said that. Because Saints Row the Third, like I've said, is the game where it embraces its own thing. Put it simply, I fully recommended this game. I mean, right now it's fairly cheap because it's not a brand new game. I don't see any reason not to get it. Okay, so in the comments below, why don't you tell me your favorite game where it completely changes its art style from one game to the next. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share, subscribe. Have a good one.